Have you ever watched the film Ex Machina? At first glance, it looks like a story about future technology and artificial intelligence.
The computer has artificial intelligence. Are you building an AI?
But in reality, the film is exploring something much closer to our everyday lives. In the film, Eva is portrayed as a female robot who can speak, show expressions, and even appear to have emotions. At that point, a simple but deeply unsettling question emerges. How do we actually know whether she is truly conscious and not just imitating human behavior? What's interesting is that this question doesn't come from science fiction alone. The same question exists in real scientific research today. And to this day, it is considered one of the hardest problems in modern science. Why is consciousness so difficult to explain scientifically? And where do the limits of scientific explanation lie? So, let's talk about it. We often think of consciousness as something complex, something tied to intelligence, behavior, or the ability to think. But in science, the definition is actually much simpler than we tend to assume.
So right now you're having an auditory experience of my voice speaking to you, visual experience of the room around you. This is what philosophers call your conscious experience, or simply, your consciousness.
What they say, I can
So
say.
what is consciousness? Put it on the table.
Subjective experience. Consciousness is anything you experience directly.
At first, that definition might sound almost too simple. Consciousness isn't about intelligence, it's not about how smart something is, and it's not about how it behaves on the outside. At its most basic level, consciousness is about experience. If something is felt, if there is a sense of being, then consciousness is considered to be present. Now let's go back to Eva. We can all agree that Eva is not human. Just look at the title, Ex Machina. She is a robot powered by artificial intelligence. She can speak, show expressions, and respond in ways that seem emotional, which leads to a simple question. How do we know whether Eva is actually conscious or not? In science, consciousness is understood as something that emerges from the nervous system. And in humans, the center of that system is the brain. For example, if someone hits you, you'll feel pain in the area that was struck, right?
Out your fucking mouth!
From a scientific perspective, the mechanism behind pain can still be explained biologically. When an impact occurs, physical changes happen in the affected tissue. Those changes are detected by the nervous system, translated into signals, and sent to the brain. The brain then processes those signals and responds with what we experience as pain. This entire chain of events can be described in considerable detail. And it's not just pain. All of our everyday sensations, touch, sound, even basic emotions, can be traced back to similar physical and biological processes. Now let's take a simpler example. For people with normal vision, we all agree that this is the color red. In science, red appears when light waves of certain wavelengths hit the eye. Those waves don't carry color, they carry energy. That energy is received by cells in the retina, converted into electrical signals, and sent to the brain to be processed. The brain then projects this information as a color, what we recognize as red. Other colors work in the same way. The only difference lies in the wavelength of the light. Examples like these are what David Chalmers, a philosopher and cognitive scientist, calls the easy problems of consciousness.
So for all of these, we have accepted paradigms from science, come up with some mechanism in terms of neurons that produce this behavior, then we've solved the problem. So those are the easy problems.
These examples are called easy, not because the answers are trivial, but because their mechanisms can already be explained by physics and biology. And that's not where the real dilemma of consciousness lies. The real problem appears after all of those explanations are complete. Because even if we understand how an impact causes physical changes, how those changes are translated into signals, and how the brain processes those signals, one question still remains. Why does that process have to be experienced as pain? Why isn't it experienced as something else, or not experienced at all? The same problem applies to color. We can explain how different wavelengths of light are processed by the eyes and the brain, but that explanation never tells us why the final result is experienced as color. All of this is real, it's processed by the brain, and we experience it every day. Yet, in principle, there is no law of physics that says a physical process must be accompanied by experience. Put more simply, Why does a particular physical process come with a particular experience instead of stopping at the process itself? Life can continue, reactions can still occur, without experience being required at all. And it is this entire confusion that David Chalmers calls
the hard problem of consciousness and philosophical zombies along the way. Please, David Chalmers.
To show that explaining mechanisms alone isn't enough, David Chalmers proposed a thought experiment he called the philosophical zombie. Imagine a being that is physically identical to a human. It has the same brain, its neurons function in exactly the same way, all of its biological processes are identical. There is only one crucial difference. This being has no experience at all. It feels nothing. And yet, because its biological system is the same, it would produce the same responses we do. If it were hit, it would react as if it were in pain. Its tone of voice would be the same. Its movements would be the same. Even the activity in its brain would be indistinguishable from that of a normal human. And this is where the paradox appears. If every physical sign points to pain, but no pain is actually experienced, can we really say that this being is in pain? This thought experiment closely mirrors the situation we saw earlier in Ex Machina, where Eva appears to behave like a conscious being. She speaks naturally, she responds emotionally, and in one scene, she even dresses herself carefully, trying to appear attractive in order to gain attention. Through this analogy, Chalmers is really asking a deeper question. How do we judge whether something is conscious? Do we judge it based on outward behavior and physical responses, or based on experience itself? If consciousness is judged only by physical responses, then what does it actually mean to be a conscious being? But if consciousness is judged by experience, we currently have no reliable method to determine whether that experience is truly present or not.
Our best operational criterion for consciousness, in humans at least, is verbal report.
Right.
To know whether someone's conscious, you ask them.
You ask them.
To know what they're conscious of, you ask them.
At the end of Ex Machina, Eva successfully deceives Caleb, the person assigned to test and monitor her. She kills her creator, then steps into the real world, blending in with other humans. At first, questions about consciousness might seem purely theoretical, because today, we haven't truly been forced to confront beings like Eva. We can still tell the difference between humans and machines. But when entities like Eva actually appear, beings whose behavior is indistinguishable from that of humans, we will be forced to make decisions without really knowing whether there is experience present or only a simulation. And this is where the limits of science become clear. As we understand it today, consciousness arises from the nervous system. In humans, its center is the brain. Pain, joy, sadness, seeing color, hearing sound, all of these are experiences made possible by processes in the brain. So the question of consciousness is no longer about how those processes work or what those experiences feel like. The real question is, how do we determine whether consciousness is truly being experienced at all? It is at this point that David Chalmers argues the problem must be reformulated, not as a mystical mystery, but as a potential law of nature yet to be mapped, one that connects physical processes to subjective experience. And that is where this discussion stops. Whether we like it or not, we have to accept that this is where science currently reaches its boundary. Science can explain mechanisms down to their deepest layers, but it still leaves one crucial gap: why those mechanisms are experienced at all, and how we can know that experience is truly there.